Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So Parallel has finally added some new creator decks. So if you are new to Parallel, or if you simply just haven't logged in and downloaded Parallel through the Epic Games Store, you definitely want to do this because you are eligible to pick one of these creator decks for free. You get to add it to your collection, of course, with all of the cards. And it really is one of the best deals for new players because you get a pretty consistent list that's very close to like what the true meta deck would be of said deck. And deck building can be hard, especially when you're trying out a new card game. So this is a fantastic deal that will set you on the path to getting those initial games in. I'm going to be going over the 5 new ones that were just added. There are still some old ones. You can see there's me right there. But if I were you, I would definitely pick one of the new decks that were just added because they are the most up to date with the meta, and these ones we made a little while ago. Also, my goal here is to help you choose which one is best for you, so hopefully that helps and we can figure out which one is your playstyle and also what you're looking for. So after you go to parallel.life/creator-decks, you'll be brought to this page here. You can see I've already claimed a deck, so mine says no decks to claim, but you are going to download and log in through the Epic Games Store, and then you will have your selection. And we'll start out with Zeli, who was the runner-up in the World Championship. So you click the view deck here, and then you can see this is where you would claim the creator deck. You can also use the copy deck code functionality, which is what I'm going to do, and port it over to parallelstats.com because it's a little bit easier to discuss the cards. All right, to start with Zeli's Arak list here, I'm going to say right off the bat, if you are a new player, I probably would not pick this deck as your choice because Arak has not really been meta for quite some time. It's, I think, a little tricky to play, especially as a new player, but it does have some loyal fans in the pro scene. So if it sounds interesting to you, you could go for it, but I personally would not pick it. So Arak is a 5-cost 2/2 here as the Paragon. The muster ability, as in when he comes into play, he's going to create the Swarm, which is a unit that pops out a couple extra tokens, but the passive ability is what is quite interesting. So friendly upgraded non-token units have Aftermath when it dies, create a 1/1 nanobot. So Core is the class of upgrades, and so Arak's passive here is when a unit, like the hard-linked pilot here, has an upgrade on it, like the cutting edge. When the pilot dies, it will pop out a 1/1 nanobot that can either just exist on the board as a 1/1, or that 1/1 can be transformed into a +1/+1 upgrade. So you can keep chaining upgrades onto non-token units to keep popping out more little nanobots. The win condition of the deck is to swarm the board with tokens from things like Portable Energy Bay. You attach this to a unit. When it dies, 3 1/1 energy drones get popped out. And then you probably win with like Memento of the Fallen here, which is the legendary upgrade of this deck, and it's used in many decks. And how Memento works is it's an upgrade that gives +1/+1 stats to a unit. When that unit dies, it has the ability to pass off Memento to another unit, give it +2/+2. When that one dies, +3/+3. So it keeps growing in stats each time the unit that it's attached to dies. But in general, it's got some cards in here that are found in many Core lists, like Hard-Linked Pilot. Ocular Implant is the upgrade that with card draw. Cutting Edge, Companion, Rummaging Researchers, neutral card draw that you'll see in many decks. Wong is the other legendary here that is quite important in the meta. But if I was going to play Core, like if that class really attracted me, I probably would go for Juggernaut Workshop to start out. But anyway, that's sort of the overview of Arak here. Again, probably wouldn't pick it, but it is quite fun to play. Next up, we've got Sparkling's Tempo Scipius deck. So Scipius is generally regarded as the best deck in the meta. It's going to be fast for climbing, and a lot of the cards that are in this creator deck here are like in the true top tier, tournament list. So there's not much else you're going to need to add to this to like make it quote quote perfect. But the 2 legendaries that you will get with this deck are Wong, that we talked about a little bit earlier. It's the neutral legendary card draw, and Magna, which Magna actually just got nerfed a little bit, but she's still very good and going to be in every Cathari list. Essentially, she does 3 things. She either deals 3 damage to a unit. It used to be equal to her attack, but now it just stays at 3. She'll deal 1 damage to the enemy, or she'll draw a card. But if a Cathari unit died on your opponent's last turn, you get to do all 3. So those are the 2 legendaries that you get. And then the rest of the cards here, Striker, Scipian, Bearer, Subjugate, Researcher, Praetor, Triumph of Europa is like the card that is why Cathari is so good. You're getting all of that. Oh, and the High Density Replicator, which is the relic that gives all friendly clones +1/+1. So this list looks fantastic, and the win condition is going to be to summon a bunch of clones, go wide with things like, the Scipian, or just summoning a bunch of token units, and then having your replicators, your relics on the board that will buff them up. I would suggest that in time, if you pick this list, I would add something like the Drusian Exorator to the deck to have a way to buff up the clones, and also Domina, which is another legendary that gives your clones that are convergence battle ready, meaning they can attack right away. Radiant Legion would also be something that I would add to this list to make it perfect. But for the most part, this will be very consistent and will make you climb fast. And so I would probably pick this one. Oh, and just real quick to talk about Scipius himself. People aren't really using Scipius that much for the castable muster ability. Basically, he re-triggers all muster abilities that you cast this game. I mean, you definitely still cast Scipius, but it's not really a list that is completely built around his ability specifically with a whole bunch of muster abilities. But in general, Wong is a great muster. Formicision's Exalt is muster, draw a card. You will have, more Magna triggers. So you do get value out of Scipius when you cast him. Don't get me wrong, but the passive ability is that after a unit is banked, he creates an 0/1 clone. And so that clone that gets summoned can, combo with things like the Asian Subjugate, as well as, the standard bearer when a clone gets summoned, +1/+1, that type of stuff. Now on to Viper's unit, Catherine. All right, so Catherine is generally regarded as the second best deck in the meta, so this would also be, a good one to pick, but Catherine and Marcolian is the aggro class of the game, and so aggro is not really my play style, but I do love Cathy, don't get me wrong. So the 2 legendaries that you'll get with this list are the Artillery Volley. This is actually a fantastic card and is in every Marcolian deck. You destroy a friendly unit and then you deal the damage equal to the unit's attack to all enemy units. So it's an AoE legendary card, very much like Shadow Flame and Hearthstone if you played that. And then you also get Memento, which we keep discussing. You can tell this is a very good relic. Catherine is going to be a aggro burn type of deck, but this particular list is a little bit more unit-centric than burn-centric. Catherine herself, she's a 4-cost 5/5 that she can't attack, but at the end of the turn, she randomly attacks an enemy. 100% of the time she goes face, just kidding. And then her passive is the second unit you play in a turn gets +1/+1 stats. So the Cathy game plan is very much play a lot of 1-cost units, because the dream is to have double 1 drop on turn 2 to get those extra stats. And burn out your opponent. Fire support base is going to buff up all of the units here. And then Triumph of Mars is going to put all cards in your hand on the bottom of your deck in random order. Then you get to draw 3 cards, and they all have their costs reduced by 3. So you can do a lot of damage or swarm the board with after you play Triumph of Mars. The one thing I will say about this list is it does not have Catherine's Rallying Cry, which is the 3-cost effect that pulls 2 units from the deck with cost 2 or less to the board. Most people are running that, and so you could consider adding that to the list once you acquire it after enough time. But we did just see someone in a tournament completely forego playing it, so it's not the end of the world to not have it. The other card that I would really suggest adding in after enough time would be Cendrillon. She's a 5-cost legendary, a split card that was actually a Battle Pass card, so make sure you're always doing the Battle Pass, folks. But she is sort of a staple, and I would include her once you get her. Next up, we've got Jimon's Ramp Nehemiah list. All right, so this Nehemiah list I actually feel is so good for one of these creator decks, because you're not missing that many like extra legendaries and rares either. Like this list is going to function and perform incredibly well in the way that like the true list would. The only thing about Nehemiah is that it's going to be a lot slower of gameplay. So if you're starting out and you're wanting to climb the ranks and get through games quite quickly, this would not be the pick for you. But if you are a like Timmy ramp player and you don't mind taking your time, you just want to enjoy putting big units on the board and ramping faster than your opponent, this might be the list for you. Nehemiah herself is a 4-cost 0/7, but she makes the attack of all units with defender equal to their health. So she's really a 4-cost 7/7, but she'll go down in stats as she takes damage. And her passive is the first friendly unit that dies in a turn. You can pass, that has defender, you can pass the defender ability off to another unit. The 2 legendaries that you're going to get from this list are Wong again, and then the Terramech Shield Titan, which is the biggest, baddest unit in all of the game. You need this thing. It is so hard to kill, but it doesn't have defender itself, so what you want to be doing with this card is finding a way to have other defenders on the board, so when they died, you can give this defender. That way, like, you know, your opponent can't be attacking your face because they got to get through the Titan. Or you play it like on turn 7, you play the little 6, and then you get a little Crimea conduit out with defender, and then you can try and survive through that. But essentially, damage dealt to this unit is reduced to 1, so it can only take 1 damage at a time. And then it's also got the extra ability with Flourish, which target enemy unit attacks this unit at the start of the next turn. So when you heal it past its full health, it will be able to trigger that ability. And then you got things like Altar of Gaia, that is a relic that heals any target for 2, and it gets its counters boosted anytime your units are taking damage, and you can remove the counters to keep healing for 2. So this thing winds up getting lots of counters, and then you can utilize it with all of your like flourish cards. The other thing about this list that I think is kind of cool for a starter is that you can summon some like high value legendaries with this card. So the Terra Glider, you're gonna multi-charge a certain amount of cards in your bank, and then you will summon a random unit equal to the multi-charge. So if you were to multi-charge to 7, there are 2 7 drops in the game. One is a legendary, Terra, the Verdant Mentor, and the other one is not. So it's like a 50-50 that you get the Terra. And most people in tournaments now are actually hard running Terra in their Nehemiah list, but because you could go for like the random get it, you can kind of have her in the list without having her in the list. You could also summon another Titan from this card. I like it quite a bit. And then, you know, Virulent Spores is AoE that's absolutely a staple to Earthen, so is Presence. Rummaging Researcher, Steward of the Garden is your 1-cost little Land of War Elves, you know, 1-drop ramp. But in general, love this list. Nehemiah, I also think, is one of the harder decks to play. Earthen is very interesting with the way you pass off your defenders and stuff like that. So I think if this sounds like you, go for it, but it's going to be a much slower climb. So keep that in mind if you choose to pick this deck. And lastly, we've got the world champion, Yarla's Control Queen Neve. All right, so this is the world champion himself's list, Neve, and probably my personal favorite of the 5 to choose from. And if you were basing your decision off of like strictly highest value of cards, this list has 3 legendaries and 12 rares, when the other ones all have 9 rares and only 2 legendaries. So that might factor into your decision. The legendaries that you do get with this one are the Stabilized Shard. It's a 2-cost relic that when you develop this, for the rest of the game, you have an extra energy. Wong, you can see the pattern, he's in every deck. And then also Malia, Voice of the Gifted, which is a legendary that is particularly good for Neve because essentially she deals damage to random enemies equal to the damage that you've done to yourself this game. And you do that through either playing corrupted units, because when you play a corrupted unit, it'll deal damage to you equal to its cost, or you'll play cards like Neve's Dominion here, which costs 1, and you get to spend your remaining energy and deal that much damage to the board, but you'll take damage equal to the damage that you deal to the board. So those two cards synergize really nicely. Shroud is sort of like the priest and warlock if you come from Hearthstone. So it's my personal favorite class, but it's got a lot of kill spells because it is the only class in the game that can banish cards to the singularity. And they've also got annoying like Thoughtseize types of cards, like Treacherous Scheming, where you can look at the enemy's hand and yoink a card. So people generally hate Shroud, but I love it. So it might be your style. But Neve herself, she is a 9-cost 6/6 with battle ready, meaning charge essentially, and evasive. She can get through defenders. But what she does is when she hits the board on turn 9, for each effect, relic, and upgrade that you've played this game, she'll summon a random unit from any class with cost equal to those effects or relics. So when you play 5 Triumph of the Lost, if you were to cast Neve and you've cast all of your Triumphs here, she would summon 5 random 5 drops. So she's like a big end game win condition, fill the board. You got to deal with Neve's board in order to win. But the sort of interesting thing about Neve is that, Yara has deemed this as control queen, and you can play her like a control deck here, but she's actually sort of like the least control-y of the 3 paragons of Shroud, because you can't play cards that cost 6 or more in a Neve deck. And so Shroud's got like an 8-cost banish the entire board spell that you cannot play in here. But she also has Neve's Dominion, which is like one of the best AoEs in the game because it's so flexible. There's not a ton of AoE in Parallel right now, but they're going to add more. So you can definitely play her control because you can banish and, answer things and then win on turn 9. But she's a little bit more of like the faster Shroud list. And Brand's probably like mid-range as well. New Dawn is like the true control paragon. But if you are more of a control style of player, I definitely would pick Neve. And I do think that you can climb somewhat fast with her, but if you're looking for fast games, you definitely want to be picking like Scipius or Catherine. But for me, the enjoyment of, stealing my opponent's units, playing high value cards and stuff like that, Shroud is definitely a lot of fun. All right, folks, there you have it. Hopefully that gives you a decent overview of each of the 5 new creator decks. My final answer on which one to pick, just sort of across the board, is going to be Sparkling's Tempo Scipius deck. Scipius is the best deck in the meta. It's also going to be quite fast for climbing, and it has pretty much favorable matchups across the entire meta. So that would be my number 1. If you really love aggro, Catherine being next best deck, I would pick Cathy next. If you are a control player like me, I'd pick the Neve. World champion Yara, come on, it's his list. And you also have like the highest value cards. Again, there's like more legendaries and rares in there. If you love the ramp stuff, Nehemiah, that list also looks awesome. And I think Augencore with the Arak, if that style of gameplay sounds really interesting to you, you could go for it. But in general, I would say that is probably the lowest of the picks of the 5 decks here. But hopefully this was useful. If you choose one of these decks and this video helps you come to that conclusion, let me know in the comments which one you decided to pick. Please like and subscribe to the channel. More Parallel content on the way in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.